So today I am going for my cervical screening, the follow-up appointment, which is, and I don't know how you say this, coloscopy examination. So I had a letter from the NHS come through following my abnormal smear results from a routine smear test. So at the age of 25, I had my first cervical screening, which involved laying on a bed and having a swab of my cervix taken. It was then sent to a lab, again all very routine, and it's a way to prevent the development of cervical cancer in women. The first time that I had my first smear at 25, they took the swab and they said, we will be in touch within 2 weeks. If you have any abnormal results, we'll let you know. Otherwise, you're absolutely fine. Come back in 3 years' time. So my swab was taken. You just lay on a bed and they put a little rod inside of you and just wipe at the cells. It took all of about 5 minutes to do. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was just more of a kind of aching feeling in my stomach. And then straight afterwards, I was absolutely fine. So 3 years on, I'm now 28 and I had my second cervical screening test. And this time within 4 days, I think it was 3 or 4 days, it came back that I have abnormal results. I have abnormal cells. I've actually been losing a lot of blood recently. In between periods, I've bled during intercourse and just randomly bled as I'm walking down the road, which I wasn't expecting. It's kind of like having somebody throw a cup of blood onto your lap. It just goes everywhere and it's been a bit unusual. I've also had period-like symptoms that have kind of stuck with me long after my period is finished. I still have the kind of ache and tenderness of a period that just hasn't come yet. So I did notice that my body was changing and I addressed that with my doctor. I'm currently anemic and I do bodybuilding and things, so I just kind of put it down to the fact that I'm a single parent of 2 young children. I push myself to the limits and maybe my body was just feeling a bit more tired. The doctor couldn't explain the random bleeds, but he did say because I had my routine smear booked for a few months' time, just to wait for that really, and that would pick up any abnormalities. So the smear this time, instead of taking 5 minutes, it actually took 40 minutes, which then made me kind of panic at the back of my mind because I already kind of convinced myself that something was wrong with me. I think the reason the smear took so long is that it took 2 ladies to do the smear. They kind of were quiet about it. She called another member of staff in and didn't really tell me what was wrong, but I knew that something wasn't as normal as before, it wasn't as routine. So whereas before I received a letter in the post a couple of weeks after my smear saying that all the results were clear, this time I received a phone call from my doctor who advised that I had abnormal cells. Now to me that's something I've never been told before, and when they tell you your cervical screening has come back abnormal, that it sent me into all sorts of panic and shock. It was a horrible thing to hear. I felt like my heart had stopped while the doctor was on the phone. And I said to her, what does that mean? She advised that even though I have abnormal cells, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have cancer or that I will ever have cancer in my life. It's something that, if untreated, will develop into cervical cancer. It has to get to a kind of intensity and extent where it becomes that. So this is really the early warning sign of it and something that you can stop, hopefully. So she advised me that the reason why my results came back as abnormal is because I also proved positive for the HPV virus, which, it just made me feel so scared because I thought that meant HIV, which is again a very horrendous problem. It's completely different, I've been assured, and after receiving these booklets through the post, it kind of made me understand it a bit better. So I'm just going to read this to you, if you can read along with me. So it says along here, precancerous changes are usually associated with the human papilloma virus, HPV, or wart virus. This virus is very common and most women have been exposed to it at some point in their life by sexual activity. Smoking increases the chances of persistent cell changes and cervical cancer. So I asked her about the HPV virus, and I also did some research online just to understand where it comes from, what it does, why you have it. And it's something much like the common cold. Everybody is very likely to have it at some point in their lives. It contains no symptoms, you can't treat it medically, and it can just disappear on its own. So your body will fight it like it would a cough or a sneeze. You heal and get better, and then you're fine. For some people though, the virus does stay with them. It's those people that hold the virus and your body doesn't heal it that actually leads on to the development of cervical cancer. This today that I'm going for is a colposcopy exam, and that will again be like a smear where they look into the cervix and they take samples, and that will hopefully tell them how many abnormal cells I have, how deep they are into the cervix, and to what extent they are. So they're graded in numbers as to the amount. Here's the exam that they show. So SIN1 means that 1/3 of the cells are affected in the abnormal area, and that may not need to be treated. It depends on the doctor's opinion of how bad that is. SIN2 means that 2/3 of the cells are affected in the abnormal area, and treatment will be needed. SIN3 means that all of the cells are affected, and treatment definitely needs to be needed. I've been told that I would have the most earliest appointment at my local hospital, whichever is closest to me that could fit me in the soonest. So I actually have to go to my non-local hospital to have an appointment, which I'm doing today. So my doctor very briefly briefed me about this, and then I received all the paperwork through the post, all the medical forms and booklets, and it sent me out of my mind with worry. It's been a very traumatic thing, and I feel very rubbish in myself. I don't know if that's just in my mind that I'm worried about my health, or the fact that these are symptoms that I'm feeling because of this. It may just be symptoms of a stressful, hectic life. It might have nothing to do with the fact that I have abnormal cells. But together, I am feeling pretty rubbish right now, and I'm hoping that today might help me to feel better, or at least take away some of the worry. So when I get back, I'll tell you all about it, and hopefully help you to understand what you're going through if you have an abnormal cervical screening result. So I just got back from the hospital, and my treatment took about 10 minutes for the colposcopy. They took a biopsy of my cells, which involved going into a room and stripping from the waist down. I was then given a towel to wrap around me, and I laid onto a bed with stirrups that you put your legs up into, so your legs are held open, nice. Then started the procedure, which used a speculum to hold me open, and then they inserted the tools to do what they needed to do. As I'm on my period, they first had to take the blood away, and they showed me this on a screen next to the bed, exactly what was going on, which was really kind of cool to see. And then used a grippy claw thing to take the biopsy. It goes all the way up, and then he asked me to cough, and I looked away because I really couldn't see that being done, and it nips a part of the body away, and that is then taken to be examined. The staff were absolutely amazing. They kept me calm. They were so informative and very reassuring. And I think it speaks volumes about the NHS that despite the amount of women that have to go through this, they remain professional and calm throughout. And it just really made the experience less daunting for me, and I'm very grateful for that. So from what I understand from today, the HPV virus is what I've been told that I have. That shows up as white dots around the cervix. And then if it's actually a growth area, that is a SIN1, SIN2, SIN3, that shows up as a discoloration of the cervix. The right-hand side of my cervix has changed white with white dots, which means that my body is beginning to grow the abnormal cells. So now that's going to be sent to the lab, and it takes 5 weeks for me to hear my results to what extent the abnormal area has changed. In myself, I feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that's just from the fact that I've just had my period and I'm on my period. Now it's a waiting game, but at least I know that I'm being seen to, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Check back for my next video, which will be the treatment if it's necessary and how the results come out. So hopefully, if you have also had an abnormal result from the smear test, this will help you to understand it a little bit more and put you at ease that this is quite a commonplace procedure for women. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you've found comfort in watching this. Thank you.